Reezy here, and let's get right into talking hockey. Alright guys, thanks for clicking on the thumbnail. So today's video is going to be all about the Habs in the North Division. We're going to be talking about the Habs start to the season so far. We're going to be talking about players who have been performing well, players that need to turn it around, and then we're going to be seeing what's going to be coming up next for the month of March and going forward. There's a lot of information to get to in this video, so without further ado, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around to the end of the video for the question of the day. Alright, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so we're at about mid-February right now. The Habs are on their bye week. Their next game is going to be this coming Saturday, the 20th of February against Toronto. Before that game is even played, right now we're standing at 15 games played, so we're at 26-ish% complete. So let's just call it the quarter of the mark review. So currently the Habs have accumulated 20 points in 15 games, so that's a 67% points percentage, which means that the Habs are on pace for 37 points in their first half of the season, which equates to 75 points after the full 56 game season. Just for reference, if we project that to an 82 game season, we're on pace for 109 points, which is pretty good. Anything over 100 points and you're guaranteed a playoff spot. And just for reference, right now Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins are on pace. Well, they're leading the league currently in terms of points percentage after 14 games played respectively, and they're both on pace for 129 points. And just for reference, the Tampa Bay Lightning 2018-2019, when they completely dominated the league, they finished that year with 129 points. So Boston and Florida are off to an extremely hot start season, but today's video is not about them. Today is all about the Habs in the North Division. The Habs so far have lost 4 games. Let's get into those games to see what happened and to see what we could change going forward. First loss of the season came against the Calgary Flames. We lost that game 2-0. So this was really the first game all year where we had the sensation that, well, are we going to score today? Essentially, it was the first game all year that we didn't score a goal. We outshot the Calgary Flames, I think it was 37-33, but they being the Calgary Flames, blocked 22 shots that game. So we actually got a lot of attempts like on net, more towards the net, with 37 of those 59 shots being on target. So this was one of those games where honestly, like, nothing was clicking, or we're just getting outplayed by the Calgary Flames. We had beat them the game before, and for this game they made some adjustments and they came to play. So that was our first loss of the season, and this really set the tone for the next week and a half, where the Habs were not really able to get much offense going, and the other teams that we were playing against were being a lot more reactive in terms of their match preparation. So we weren't getting much offense in the next couple of games, but we're going to get into the other 3 losses right now. So our next loss came against the Ottawa Senators. This was a very close game actually. It was back and forth. The Ottawa Senators was the first time we played them all year, and we're going to get into them a little bit going forward. But the first time we played them, they came to play. Watching this game was the second or third Ottawa game that I watched at this point. Up until this game, I really didn't see much from them in terms of like how I thought they were going to be playing. So I really thought they were going to, like, this game that we played against them, I thought this was the game that the Ottawa Senators were going to play all year, which wasn't the case. Turns out our first game against them, they beat us in regulation time. The very next game that we play Ottawa, which is 2 days later, we beat them in regulation time. Again, another very close, tight, hard-fought game, and this is the Ottawa team that I thought we were going to see all year. So we beat Ottawa, we lose to Ottawa, and then we get into our slump. So we lost 2 games in a row in regulation time. The first one against Toronto, and then the second one against Edmonton. The game against Toronto, we lost to them 4-2. It wasn't a great game. Not to say that well, they scored an empty net goal at the end of the game. This was the game where the Justin Hall and Dermott really they got 2 good goals, but Price should have been better in this specific game. The next game against Edmonton, we lose 3-0. So this is the second game this year in our first 15 where we did not score a goal. So going 2 games out of 15 not scoring a goal is not bad. Obviously it's not ideal. We scored at least 1 goal in 13 of the 15 games, which is amazing. So where do we stand in the North Division? So right now we're second in the North Division in terms of points and also in terms of points percentage. We're behind Toronto, who they played 2 more games than us. We're playing them this Saturday, so hopefully we'll be able to come out of that game with a victory and kind of bridge the gap between the two, just like what we did last Saturday against them. One very important note so far this year is that we have not yet played the Winnipeg Jets. So Winnipeg is currently 4th in the division in terms of points. They're 3rd in terms of points percentage, but Winnipeg is going to be one of those teams that is going to make it to the playoffs. I strongly believe that. We're going to be playing them 2 times in the coming week. We only played 2 games against against Ottawa, going 1 win, 1 loss. 2 games against Calgary, again going 1 win and 1 loss. We played 3 games against Toronto. Our record against Toronto is currently 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 loss in regulation. And then we played the Vancouver Canucks, what was it, like 4 or 5 times. I think it was 5 times. We beat them 4 times in regulation, and we lost to them once in a shootout. It's really hard to project how the Habs are going to finish this year, for the simple reason is that we have a very small sample size against Ottawa and against Calgary, who are 2 of the teams maybe not going to make the playoffs. Ottawa for sure not, Calgary likely not. So we really have to play those teams a little bit more often in order to see exactly how we stand up against the rest of the division. But so far so good. We just have to keep it up, keep accumulating those points as much as possible in regulation, and we're going to be 1-2 with Toronto once the season comes to a close. Okay, so let's get into the players that need to keep the pace that they're currently on, how they started the year. They must continue this pace in order for the Habs to have a fighting shot in order to finish 1 or 2 against Toronto in the division. So the players are Toffoli, Petrie, Suzuki, Anderson, Jonathan Drouin, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. We're going to call him KK going forward. So Toffoli had one of the off-season acquisitions along with Anderson, who we'll get into very shortly. Toffoli has 10 goals in 15 games. He's on a point per game pace. Only him and Petrie so far at this point of the season have accumulated at least 1 point per game, averaged out throughout the whole 15 games. So Toffoli has to keep up the pace. He's doing very well. He actually just got promoted to the first line, and Tatar being demoted, actually scratched in the last game. So Toffoli, although most of his points came against Vancouver is a team that we did play the most so far, so it's only normal that you're going to have more points against them because we played against them the most. Toffoli has to keep up his pace. The same goes for Jeff Petrie. So Jeff Petrie is actually right now 3rd in the NHL when it comes to points by a defenseman. He's tied with Hedman right now with 15 points. They're both tied for 2nd, essentially behind Quinn Hughes, who is leading the league. I think he has like 18 points or something like that. But Quinn Hughes has played 5 more games than both Petrie and Hedman. As for Nick Suzuki, the sophomore slump, I mean, non-existent so far. Nick Suzuki, up until that game against Calgary where we did not score a goal in that game, so no one on our team got a point. So up until that game, Nick Suzuki got at least 1 point in every single game up until that point, which is amazing. So Nick Suzuki started off the season super strong. One of those players, he's a superstar in the making. He's very effective when it comes to his vision, his stick play, his positioning. Everything that he does essentially is just top notch. He is in the future going to be nominated for many Selke. Hopefully he's even going to win one. There's one thing about Nick Suzuki that I wanted to mention that's just not as good as what we would hope for, but I'm not worried about it. Let's get into it. So essentially it's his face-off. So right now he's at about 40% on his face-offs. Actually it's 39%, as you can see on the screen here. So he won 89 face-offs and he lost 136 at a 40% clip. Why I say I'm not worried is because face-offs are really one of those aspects of the game that players really only master later on in their careers. Suzuki is still very young, so I'm not expecting him to be a juggernaut. He does have the potential to get there. So I'm not worried about his face-off percentages, but I just wanted to mention that he has to get better in that respect. The next player we're going to get into is Josh Anderson. So I'm not going to get into the trade or anything like that, but Josh Anderson has had a very good start to the season. We were missing this type of forward for a long time. So Josh Anderson has size, speed, skill. He's got a shot. He forechecks. He hustles. He brings it every game, and that's really what we wanted to see when we acquired him, and he's brought it every single game. One thing about Josh Anderson is he's a menace on the ice. So people like the other opponents, when they see him coming at him like a raging bull, they don't know what to do. They're pinned back in their defensive zone, and they kind of get scared. They tense up, which creates a lot of offensive opportunities. So 9 goals and 2 assists, so 11 points in 15 games. One interesting stat about Josh Anderson is that he actually has 0 power play points. So all 11 of his goals came at even strength. One thing I forgot to mention about Anderson, I'll just plug it in here, is that he's got 42 hits in his 15 games. So he's getting 2.8 hits per game from a forward. He's got the most hits on the team. He has 7 more hits than Romanov, and he's got 11 more hits than Edmondson, which is amazing. So he's the power forward that we were really lacking, and I'm so happy that we now have. The next player that I want to get into, who's had a very good start to the season, is none other than Jonathan Drouin. So Jonathan Drouin is one of those players that gets a lot of heat put on him in terms of his performances, but I just really want to say that he started the year extremely consistent. He drives the play, he has very good vision. One thing that he doesn't do enough is shoot the puck, which is evident. He only has 1 goal in his first 15 games, but he's got 10 assists. So he is one of those playmaking forwards, and he's on, in my opinion, the best line on the team. So So him centered by Suzuki, and on the other wing is Josh Anderson. 3 players that have had a very good start to the season, hence why they're in this section of the video. So Drouin, in my opinion, very consistent to start the year. Hopefully he's able to keep that consistency, because that's one thing that was lacking in his game. Defensively, he's not making any errors, he's not rushing the puck, he's not putting the puck in questionable spots, so he's able to effectively exit his zone and enter the offensive zone, hence driving the play. The last player that I wanted to bring up is KK. So although it looks like he only has a half a point per game, well, I mean, it doesn't look like it, the stats suggest that he only has half a point per game. KK is 20 years old. There's a stat that's going to be up on the screen somewhere very soon that Arpin Basu from The Athletic tweeted out. This is KK's 3rd year in the league. He's the 10th youngest player in the league. Crazy, after 3 years. This year he's surpassing his NHL average in terms of point production so far. So this year statistically is his best year so far. KK, ever since the bubble last year when we played against Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, he brought a physical aspect to his game in that bubble, which he carried over to this year. Very good on the forecheck. He also drives the play. He's got very good vision. He's not half bad in the face-off dot, although there is a little bit of improvement that we'll gladly take. But KK, I just wanted to mention him in this section of the video. From a fan's perspective, I love the kid. The consistency is there. As long as he's doing everything that he's doing, the points are going to come. He's only 20 years old. Get off his case. He's doing well. So there's 4 players that I wanted to speak about that have turned their game around this year. The first one is going to be none other than Phillip Danault. So Phillip Danault he has 6 assists in his first 15 games. He's got no goals. So he's one of 3 players on the Habs team that don't have a goal. In terms of, he still doesn't have a goal. In terms of time on ice, he does have the highest amount of time on ice without having a goal. So there's him, there's Victor Mete, who's only played 3 games, there's Kulak, and there's Byron, who don't have a goal. So my apologies, there's 4 players who don't have a goal. Turning down a $30 million contract, coming back, no goals in 15 games. 6 assists in 15 games, so he's less than a half a point per game. He actually has less points than KK, but Danault really has to get his game turned around if he wants to continue his career with the Montreal Canadiens. The other players that I wanted to get into were actually Thomas Tatar. So Thomas Tatar was scratched last game, and the reason why he was scratched is not necessarily because of his points output. 8 points in 14 games is not great, but it's not terrible. Thomas Tatar, in my opinion, the reason why he got scratched is because when he was on the ice, he just wasn't effective. Like, he wasn't bringing any hustle. Like, he started the season off super strong. He scored a few goals in the first few games of the season, but after that, he really fell off a cliff and he wasn't doing much. And I think it's because of his intensity on the ice, the reason why he got scratched. We'll see if he plays tomorrow against Toronto, but he's one of those players, just like Danault, if he wants a future with the Montreal Canadiens, he's going to have to turn his season around. The last 2 players that I want to get into, and for players that have to perform better, first one is going to be Paul Byron. Paul Byron got sent on waivers. Now he's actually sitting on the taxi squad. I don't think he's going to be playing tomorrow against Toronto. Byron is one of those players, ever since his concussion against, I think it was against Mackenzie Weegar, I could be wrong, with the Florida Panthers. Long story short, he got into a fight with him, he got knocked out, and ever since then he has not been the same player. I think there's only 1 season where he got 10 goals since that incident. And this year, so far, he's not bringing his A game. He's got 3 points in 14 games. Got sent down to the taxi squad, just like the last 2 players. If he wants to have a future with the Montreal Canadiens, his season has to be turned around. And the last player I wanted to bring up was Yoel Armia. So the reason why I bring up Armia, because Armia, take away his 1 game, the last game that he played against Vancouver, where he got headshotted by Tyler Myers. We're not going to get into it. In my opinion, it should have been a suspension. I digress. That game, he got 4 points. Is that the reason why Myers targeted him for the headshot? We'll never know. He was doing amazing that game. So take away that game. So he has 5 points in 8 games. Take away the 1 game where he had 4 points. He's got 1 point in 7 games. He was playing on a line with KK and Toffoli before Toffoli got promoted to the first line. So playing with 2 offensive-minded players, getting 1 point in 7 games is just not good enough. So he's only getting a shot a game as well, just a little bit over a shot a game. So Armia, although I'm not necessarily worried about his future with the Montreal Canadiens, he's not having the optimal start to the season, and he's one of those players who I would like to see his game turn around for the next 75% of the season. So what's next next for the Habs. So we have 5 games in the last 8 days of February. I'm super looking forward to the game on Thursday against Winnipeg, as that is going to be one of those measuring stick games. We're going to be about 30% into the season at that point. First time we're going to be playing Winnipeg, and I just really want to see how that game evolves, and the next game against Winnipeg Saturday the 27th as well. So that's one game I'm really looking forward to. But that's really the start of a really jam-packed schedule. In the month of March, we're playing, I think it's 16 games in the month of March. It's a game every other day. 2 back-to-backs that we're playing in every other game. We only get 1 rest day between the games. So very, very jam-packed schedule. And at the end of March, we're going to actually have been about 64% done the season. So currently we're at 25%. By the end of March, so in a month and a week or so, we're going to be 64% done. So a big chunk of our season is coming up right now. A lot of games in a very short amount of time. This is where our depth is going to matter. So all the off-season acquisitions that Marc Bergevin made, this is where we're going to see if it's going to bear fruit or not. I'm hopeful that it will. We're going to have to wait and see how the season plays out. So in my opinion, the Habs are definitely contenders in the North. It's going to be them and Toronto. One of them is going to finish first and the other one is going to finish second. And I honestly believe one of the last 3 games of our season, we're playing Toronto back to back to back in our last 3 games of the season. And one of those games is going to be the clinching game to see who's going to finish first and second. That's my prediction. Don't know if it's going to be true or not. Very excited to see what's going to happen. Thanks for making it this far in the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Today's question of the day is, which Hab impressed you the most? And alternatively, which Hab disappointed you the most up till now this season? So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and answer today's question of the day down below. I'm going to see you on the next one. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye-bye.